All right, let's talk some frauds. Today's question is, who is the biggest fraud in the NFL? I kind of left it open-ended, so I'm going to let you guys give your opinions on it. Just let you know the question for tomorrow. We're going to just kind of do the opposite of it. We're going to do who is someone who doesn't get enough credit. And just to make it a little bit I think better of a video, let's just make a rule, honor system. Don't pick someone on your favorite team. Who doesn't get enough credit, who isn't on your favorite team, and let's try to not pick quarterbacks either. I won't, not a hard and fast rule, but that's what we're going to do for that. And again, if you want to get your answers in, give me an answer with a 1 to 2 sentence explanation as to why. And now, without further ado, let's get into some frauds. Right off the bat, let's go with a scorcher. Listen, these are going to be controversial, right? If you're talking frauds, everyone's convinced everyone on their team is underrated, not overrated. Dan Campbell, I love that guy with all my heart, but as a Lions fan watching Lions games, I didn't really like a lot of his decisions. Not the 4th down decisions, but the run it on 3rd and 6 or 3-man rush when it's 4th and 20 and your secondary sucks. Listen, I don't think this is a horrible take necessarily. Campbell has been someone who's gotten a lot of credit early on, but maybe hasn't yet earned all of it, especially in the X's and O's. But he has done a great job with the motivational stuff. So we'll start to learn more about Campbell the more talent the Lions get, I think. So I see why you have him as a fraud. Although, again, fraud's a harsh word, but that's kind of what makes this fun. CeeDee Lamb. He doesn't have Cooper on the other side. IDK, I thought he is a bit overhyped by Cowboys fans. It's interesting. It's probably true just because, again, wide receiver, that's the one position where everyone is convinced that all of their receivers are underrated. The joke Kyle and I make on the podcast is there's 20 top 10 receivers in football and 10 top 5 receivers in football because everyone throws so many guys in those lists. So, again, I see the logic. We'll see if CeeDee Lamb can be a true number 1 this year. Biggest fraud, Tua. He definitely gets more hate than he deserves, but I still believe there's much to criticize. The fact that he has not performed or shown as much talent as the players drafted around him, like Herbert and Burrow, not even close. It looks like he has to cock his arm back and use all the power in his entire body just to float a ball 40 yards down the field. I'm not sure how that's going to work with the imminent future. I'm not sure how that's going to work in the imminent future with Hill and Waddle as the primary wide receivers. I wish him the best, but I just don't feel like the Dolphins could ever make a deep playoff run with him. I don't entirely disagree. I think that that's pretty fair and well said. Listen, there's stuff to like about Tua, but you're right. Like, when it comes to Herbert, Burrow, and Tua, kind of the 3 receivers drafted at the top of that draft, there's a clear number 3, so I get it. I don't think he's necessarily a fraud, but I think Clyde Edwards-Helaire is definitely worse than people think, and in my opinion, overrated. There's no way the Chiefs would still take him as running back 1 in a redraft with Jonathan Taylor, Antonio Gibson, and J.K. Dobbins on the board. I would even go as far as to say that A.J. Dillon might have a bigger impact for the Chiefs if they took him instead. I think A.J. Dillon's actually underrated. I would definitely feel that way, although kind of a weird fit there. But, it did feel like you're drafting a running back in the first round and drafting a running back to fit your team needs in the first round was very bizarre and has not worked out for Kansas City. And he still kind of is, I think, living off of that. He was he was selected in the first round by the Chiefs. I think the fantasy football community was very excited about him potentially being a great option there, but not someone who has lived up to the hype of being a first-round running back by any means. I think it's well known now, but I think the biggest fraud in the NFL is Mike McCarthy. I think he was good in his first few years in Green Bay, but the massive wave of talent surely helped him out. I think his play calling has gotten stale and somewhat predictable, and when the talent around Green Bay dissolved, he couldn't find a way to outcoach the other side. He is having the same exact problem in Dallas, and I'm amazed on how he still has a job. Yeah, I think this is fair. Like, Mike McCarthy, there's some things to like about McCarthy, but it just feels like the best things about him are like he's hired a good staff, right? I don't really get the Mike McCarthy stuff. I don't get why he still has a job either. I'm totally with you. It's not to discredit what he's done throughout his career. He has had a very good career. He's won a Super Bowl. It's hard to win a Super Bowl if you're a bad head coach. Like, he certainly had a role there. But I think you said it well. After kind of the talent went away, he struggled to, find his groove again as a head coach. I think that's fair. Allen Robinson. Obviously, he was in a bad situation last year, but there is no excuse for his poor play. I just do not think he is worth the contract he was given, and it's most likely he won't be very good. Mooney held that offense down, while A-Rob did not produce much. I don't know if I agree, but I get the point behind it. Robinson was not good last year. I think that the reason why you're giving him the contract is you're banking on last year being a fluke, and it was in a bad situation, and Robinson has performed well in bad situations before. So I get it. He did get paid a decent amount. There's no denying that. But I think that I would disagree, but I can understand why you would make that point. Robert Saleh. Obviously, he went into a bad situation, but that's no excuse for being a defensive coach and having the worst defense statistically last year. They did well in the offseason, so we'll have to wait and see if he can improve. I actually think it is an excuse for me personally to, have the worst defense statistically. Yes, you're a defensive-minded head coach, but if your defense sucks, I think talent matters. Talent matters more than coaching, and if you have no talent, your team isn't going to look very good. I thought that he did a good job with sort of the rah-rah stuff. I thought he did a good job with the motivational stuff. And we've seen him being a good X's and O's coach in San Francisco when he's had talent. So I would not call him a fraud, but I do see the logic. Kirk Cousins. Great counting stats because all of the skill positions around him, but overrated by a lot. I think Kirk Cousins is fine. I think we all know Kirk Cousins is not a superstar by any means, and some of his bulk stats are overblown. But again, is he a fraud? Possibly. Certainly not worth the contract. So I'll say yes, fraud. Again, can't be stingy with the words. Fraud is a harsh word, but we're using frauds here. So yes, I will say Kirk Cousins is a fraud. I feel that Jamal Adams is a major fraud. Many people say he's one of the best safeties in the game, but I really don't think he's that good. Don't get me wrong, I'd rather have him over some safeties, but he's really just a box safety and isn't a great one at that. I kind of disagree. I think he was a legitimate great box safety with the Jets in the Todd Bowles scheme. I think that him being, you see Bowles now kind of use Devin White as that role. I think him being essentially a linebacker who blitzes a lot, that's a good, that position has value, but he went to a team that he just isn't used in that way at all. He went to kind of the worst scheme fit for him imaginable, I think, with the Seattle cover 3, where he's kind of just asked to just sit back in coverage a lot, which is just not where his value is. And really, his value isn't even really with stopping the run. It's mostly with blitzing, which again, there's value in it, but definitely not worth multiple first-round picks, as we have certainly learned. And again, it needs to be in a better scheme fit for him to have success. So sure, I think I agree. Joe Burrow is a fringe fraud candidate, though he's very good. Brags about yards when half of them are yards after the catch, and people forget he lost to the Browns and Jets. Big mouth for a 10-win team. Does he brag a lot about that? Maybe he does. I haven't watched every interview with him, but I think Joe Burrow is amazing. I think Joe Burrow's, all of his advanced statistics were better, so if you want to say yards after the catch, his advanced statistics were even better than his regular box score stats. His advanced statistics were best in football, so in terms of a bypass production basis. So listen, his team lost to the Browns and Jets. I wouldn't put that on him. This is not an unpopular opinion. There are people who think that Burrow is overrated. I'm going to be the opposite. I'm going to champion Burrow. I think Burrow is underrated. So, hey, I like the take. I respect the take. It's a bold one. We'll see we'll see who's right at the end of this. Even putting aside the legal issues, Deshaun Watson, as a football player, is an absolute fraud. Just threw for big numbers to Hopkins, and the entire team fell apart without Hopkins. An elite quarterback should be able to at least cushion that. He got his team to 4 wins just because of one wide receiver. I mean, listen, with the way that Kyler has looked great with Hopkins, clearly Hopkins helps out a quarterback a lot. But again, I don't fully agree with that. I think Watson is incredible on the field, is what I would say. I think Josh Allen is a quote-unquote fraud. I think he is good, but people have said he's the next super elite guy, and that I just don't buy. I think he will come back down and just be very good. Yeah, again, I get this one. To me, I agree with this one more than the other ones because I do think Josh Allen is someone who has kind of been crowned as one of those, like you said, super elite guys. He's kind of been put in the Mahomes conversation and even the Aaron Rodgers conversation, and I think he's been too inconsistent. His best day is better than anyone else's best day. I stand by that, but I want to see a little bit more consistency, but maybe we'll see that next year. So I think I agree. Cooper Kupp. I still think he is very good, maybe top 5, but he's not as physical or fast as some guys, and Davante is still the better route runner and catcher. Yeah, I think my thing with Kupp is I want to see another year of this. If he does it again next year, all right, cool. But we've seen a big sample size of Cooper Kupp now, and we've only seen him do this for 1 year. And maybe it's just he has the chemistry with Stafford has completely made it work, and that's why he's, this incredible receiver who's had all these incredible statistics and all that stuff. He's obviously awesome. There's no denying that. But, my podcast co-host has him as wide receiver number 1. I'm not quite sure I would put him there yet, so I'm with you. Trevon Diggs. People are overhyping this guy because of his interceptions. I believe he is more of a safety rather than a corner. He won't be able to cover these super athletic wide receivers, and there's no way he will be able to get the same amount of interceptions again this season. And once that number drops, we will see a big decline in his performance. This is not a bad take. Trevon Diggs is someone who, interceptions are fluky. That being said, he clearly has great ball skills and will be able to continuously, take advantage of the opportunities that he gets. He just probably won't have as many opportunities as he had last year, is fair to say. He did give up a ton of yards. I believe he gave up the most yards out of any corner in the NFL last year, despite having the most interceptions out of anyone in the NFL last year. Super fascinating player. I don't agree that he's a safety. I think he could be a great cover 2 zone corner. The cover 3 is a little bit tough for him as there's no safety help over the top, or there's a safety over the top, but you can get burned towards the sideline. That puts him in a bit of a tough situation, and I think he could be better in a different scheme is probably what I would say, but the great ball skills are still going to come in handy. So I agree, he's a fraud. He's not a first-team All-Pro. That's just not what he is, but there's still some talent there and still value in a Trevon Diggs. I would agree, and I don't think that he's a safety either. I think that he is I still think he's solid. He's just, maybe not what some people think he is that just look at his interception totals. Matt LaFleur is a fraud. His quarterback is a Hall of Famer, and he has won MVP twice during LaFleur's tenure. He has had an extremely strong team in an extremely weak, I believe that's supposed to say, division, so his regular season record should be expected, not praised. The collapse of his special teams unit in the playoffs showed what happens when he can't lean on overwhelming talent. Sounds harsh, but the question is harsh. The question is harsh. Listen, it's frauds here. These are supposed to be harsh, so I appreciate the hot take. But yeah, I disagree. I think LaFleur is awesome. I think LaFleur is really good. And we can sit here and say, well, his quarterback won MVP twice. His quarterback looked like he was on the decline before he won MVP twice. LaFleur deserves some credit for that. Sure, they blew up. That San Francisco game was not good. And if you want to blame him for the special teams failures, I think that's probably fair. But I think a big element is listen, there was only so much you could do when all he has is Davante Adams. I thought that he schemed guys up to get open that, while only having one really good receiver so consistently last year. I thought that he was one of the best coaches in the year last year. So I'm a LaFleur guy. I'm not going to say he's a fraud. I get the stake. You're not the only person who has it, but I don't care what division you're in. 13 wins is impressive. So that's how I view it. Finally, this one's a good one. This one's a hot take at first, but I actually kind of agree with it. Biggest fraud, Derrick Henry. I think many running backs are frauds in terms of the value they bring to winning, but Henry is the biggest of them. The Titans remained a good team when Henry was out, and yes, while he was injured, he failed to make a significant impact in the playoff game versus the Bengals. In my opinion, he's also set to regress a bit, and he's not going to have near the impact people think he will have next year. Running backs are less dominant than people think. When was the last time a running back carried a team in the playoffs? And the answer is not in the modern era to that question. I agree. I think running backs in general are just frauds. So that's kind of part of how this works, and that's the main thing. But yeah, for someone like Derrick Henry, who got all the credit for the Titans' success, Titans still did have success without Derrick Henry. Now, I would mention they did not look as good without Derrick Henry. That has to be mentioned. The offense looked better with Henry in there. Having a guy who's going to get a lot of attention is just going to help your football team. It is. So it's not that Derrick Henry doesn't have value, but I do think that, one thing I said when Henry got hurt is I would rather have Derrick Henry get hurt than Ryan Tannehill get hurt, just due to positional value. And I'd probably rather have Derrick Henry get hurt than A.J. Brown get hurt due to positional value. And I think that, showing how well they did without Henry kind of proves that. Now the question is, now they don't have A.J. Brown. So the question is, we'll really get to see who hurt the team more. And I would suspect that, losing Derrick Henry was not as big of an impact as losing Brown would be, unless like Traylon Burks, again, that's a whole other conversation. But yeah, as a whole, running backs are overrated, so the best running back in football probably doesn't matter as much as people think they do. Makes sense. All right, well, that was a fun one. Definitely a lot of hot takes in this one, which is fun. Kind of a cool way to, again, I like this stuff, getting to, get some hot takes, and I can disagree with some of them too, so I look like the good guy this time. I don't have to give the hot takes. That's always fun. So again, the opposite, the more positive one that will get people less angry. Who's underrated? Who is someone who doesn't get enough credit is the way I would want to phrase it. And let's, again, try to pick someone who's not of your favorite team just to make things a little bit more fair. But again, I can't tell. We're doing honor system here. You can lie. I won't know. But anyways, let me know what you think in the comments below. Always love hearing from you. And of course, as always, thanks for watching.